So this is welcome to part 2 of optimizing your LinkedIn profile, and today we're going to go through some practical applications of jumping between presentation and actually jumping into your profile to update it. So if you've got a laptop or an iPad or a phone with access to LinkedIn, I'd probably recommend using that now. So just to get a start, the reason we chose LinkedIn as this platform is really because of the size of LinkedIn and its global reach. So there's over 586 million users around the world. It slightly skews towards male, probably because it's a professional networking website. But there's also a big skew towards the younger generation. So it's almost become the new form of your CV and how you would present yourself both in an interview, but how you would prepare for networking and meeting new people as well. So looking at a global perspective, LinkedIn is in all the countries around the world that you would imagine it is. Australia is kind of roughly in line with the population, with about 10 million LinkedIn users, but obviously a huge market in the US and India. It's starting to grow in China. It's not every Chinese business or entrepreneur or person is using it, but it's growing over time. And it is predominantly in English language. However, you can have profiles in local language, and then it will automatically translate that over as well. So if you're looking at someone's profile in Chinese and you want to translate it, you can do that through the software, which is pretty cool. So there's kind of 6 types of users that are on LinkedIn. Most people think of LinkedIn for when they're looking for a new job. So it's a great source of finding CVs and applications and things that you can go through. It's also a real stomping ground for recruiters, and it's not unusual to get headhunted or contacted via recruiters on LinkedIn when they're looking for people. There's a lot of companies on there. All the Fortune 500 companies have a presence on LinkedIn, but it's great for researching different businesses if you're looking for more information about a company. And they usually put a lot of stuff on there about their human resources or what they're doing to help build their people side of the business. It's also really popular with business professionals and particularly senior leadership. I think in the early days, some people were a bit hesitant to put information on LinkedIn. They thought it was just another social media site. But now, definitely for some of the more influential CEOs and leaders around the world, it's become a really good communications tool for telling people about what they're doing and the projects that they're passionate about. There are a lot of influencers on LinkedIn. Politicians are starting to use it. It can be quite good for building your own personal profile if you want to have an influence in a particular area. So it's worth keeping that in mind. And there's also a lot of startups and SMEs that are using it, and particularly if you're a startup founder or you're a small business and you're trying to establish who you are and do your marketing. It's a great tool for telling people about who you are and what you do. And quite often you can use it almost effectively for free. So we use LinkedIn for Asia advisory pretty much every day. We post 3 to 5 times a week with articles that are interesting to us. We also publish our own content as well. And we'll talk about some of those ways that you can use LinkedIn for your startup as we go through. So I think when you're creating a social media platform, I always use this analogy like it's like having a baby. Once you create something, you've got to look after it. You've got to feed it. You've got to change its nappy. You've got to look after it when it cries. You've got to make it feel happy. It's not one of those things that you can just set and forget, just like any other social media platform. Once you build your LinkedIn, it takes time and it takes ongoing management to maintain it. So try and find people who have similar aspirations to you and that are aligned with what you're interested in. Find people that are willing to engage with you. It can be a great way to network and to meet people or follow up with people that you've met through face-to-face networking functions. And also, it's good for finding clients and people who want what you have. So if if you were thinking about selling your product or selling your service or selling your business, it can be a really good lead generation and sales tool that not only brings credibility, but also is a way for people to follow up and engage with you. And quite often, I've had clients contact me out of the blue. Oh, hey, I read one of your articles, or hey, I heard you speak at a networking function. I'd like to follow up, can we go grab a coffee together? So it can be a really good lead generation tool as well. And the other thing to keep in mind when you're talking about audiences is try to surround yourself with people who energize you. Like people that, not just people that are in your existing network, but people that you aspire to be like. So mentors or heroes or people that are like leading specialists in that part of the industry that you're looking at. Don't be afraid to reach out to them with a message, follow what they're doing, read some of their content. Like that can be a really cool source of content for your own thing. So this is getting a little bit sort of philosophical right now, but like Lao Tzu was an ancient Chinese philosopher, and he said at the very center of being, you have the answer. You know who you are and who you want to be, and that's what you've got to be true to. And some people it takes their whole life to find out who they are, and other people who are lucky enough to be doing their own business or to be very clear about their passion, it's a really rewarding feeling to be able to communicate that. So what we're going to do now is jump between presentation and LinkedIn. So if you want to open your LinkedIn profile on your laptop, and we'll take you through kind of 3 very basic steps of how to become awesome on LinkedIn. So first step is going to be around building and optimizing your profile. I assume most people will have a profile here, which is good. Even if it's not fully done, don't worry, we'll go through some steps that we can help you to build that. The second one is around making quality connections. So people that are already in your network, that you may have gone to university with, or you may have studied with, or they may be in your extra interest groups, like maybe you do sports or stuff with them, or you've heard them speak or things like that. And then the third area is really about content management. So how can you produce and post quality content on a regular thing? So thinking about LinkedIn like that baby analogy, it's not just to set it up and then it's there. You've got to maintain it. You've got to change its nappy. You've got to feed it. You've got to keep it happy. All of that stuff to keep the profile active and going. So we'll jump into building your profile. So if you just want to open up your homepage, and so if you click up on profile at the top, this is where it says me, and view profile, you should get a page that looks similar to that. And what you really want to look at in this area is having a really clear headshot and high quality. Try to have, if you can get it done professionally, we would suggest that. We're probably going to do some around Haymarket HQ as well. We talked about doing some profile shots for people that are here, just to help them get their images looking professional. The other thing you probably want to have a look at is a background image that goes across like the header, and try to be consistent to who you are and what you're doing. So if you're based in Sydney, it may be a photo of Sydney. If you're interested in cities, like maybe put a cityscape or something that's like either daytime or nighttime. If you're, for example, if you're from China and you're from, say you're from Beijing, maybe you want to have like a beautiful picture of Beijing as your cover thing, because that helps identify who you are and where you've come from. Then you want to have a look at that tagline about what you do. So this is kind of a combination of your job title, but also like a little summary sentence of something about you. So for example, my name's Adam, I'm the co-founder at Asia Advisory, and I'm helping to build people-to-people links across Asia. So it's a really simple way that people can look at your profile and understand what you do. Then last week when we did the first lunch and learn session, we wrote like a personal brand statement, which was like a paragraph introducing who you are and what you do, and I've got that available if people want to contact me. If you don't have it, let me know, get in touch by email, and I'm happy to send it over to you. That information is the summary that you'll put into that box there. So it kind of is a condensed paragraph about who you are, what you've done, what you're planning to do, your aspirations. And don't be afraid to use keywords. Things like places, like Sydney, Shanghai, Korea, Seoul, whatever that you happen to be, including your history. So if you've been to university overseas, put that in there. Pull some of those keywords around different industries that you've worked in as well. So for me, I've worked with tourism, consumer electronics, FMCG, luxury clients and media clients. So don't be afraid to put some of those keywords in there, because that'll help your profile when people are searching for you. But that summary is really important. And then the other area up here is around the connections and followers. So like which companies are you following or are you part of? And you can have a choice, and we'll go through some of those to follow specific companies that are aligned with your interests. So the second area is around, actually I'll just jump into some practical things there. So coming back to following people. So if you go into the profile and then up the top, you can type in that linkedin.com/feed/following. That will show all the companies that you're currently following, but also provide suggestions of people to follow. So can you guys see that if you type in that URL? So www.linkedin.com/feed/following. What we're trying to do here is find companies that we can follow that are aligned with our interests. So some of them might be people, some of them might be like influencers or senior business leaders or entrepreneurs or people or politicians, or it could be anything really. Like, so you look at the ones that are coming up in the ones in mine. So Arianna Huffington, for example, very influential entrepreneur. And then there's a mix of companies as well. So EY Consulting, The Economist. I'm following a lot of these because they're aligned with what we're doing at Asia Advisory. But you could find, if you go on to follow Fresh Perspectives, it'll give you some suggestions of people that you can follow. And then it's just a case of clicking the little plus button underneath. So for example, let's just have a look through here. So Randy Zuckerberg is Mark Zuckerberg's sister and also has a media company. I'm not following her, but she's come up in one of the suggested friends, so I could just click on that and then it would go into my following. So what you're starting to do here is build an audience of people and source of information that have similar interests to what you do. You can just toggle between those three. So if you're looking for other people, if you go over to the followers, which is the third tab at the top, that'll give you some people suggestions. And they might be a combination of people who have contacted you or are doing similar work. And again, same thing, just click on the plus then, follow them. So that will help you to make quality connections. And I think it's really important to think aspirational here. Like, who is someone that you really look up to, either from a political perspective or an entrepreneurial perspective, or they might be a business leader, or they might be an athlete or a sports person. You can see that a lot of these people are business leaders, and they've built up these big followings and audiences over an amount of time. Bill Gates is a really good user of LinkedIn. He uses it to communicate what they're doing with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Anthony Robbins, motivational speaker, very influential guy. Yeah, he does the whole sort of hoo-ha, get up stuff. He's also using LinkedIn a lot. Richard Branson, Jack Welch, Obama back in the day when he was president. So you can see how people start to use their profiles. But this is great for when you're wanting to build inspiration and audience. So if you follow them, they'll come up in your feed, and anything that they post might give you some content to help share as well. Talked a little bit before about following companies, and this is just an example, like an illustrative example of some things that we're following and we're a part of. So Asia Advisory has a really strong interest in Korea because of my background, but also of some of the people that we participate with. So, for example, when you think of Korea, who could you follow that have a presence there that are going to be leaders in those areas? Macquarie Bank, for example, Macquarie Bank has their largest operation in Asia in Seoul. So we follow Macquarie Bank because we're always interested when they're investing in infrastructure and projects and things like that. The Korean Trade and Investment Commission is another one. Auscham Korea, they publish a lot of reports on business in Korea. Australia Korea Business Council, which we're a member of as well, so we follow them. So you're starting to build out these audiences of people that have similar interests. Take China as another example. I'm just starting to learn more about China. It's an area that I wanted to build our credibility and expertise in. So we've started to follow some of the news services like the South China Morning Post, which is an English news service out of Hong Kong. UTS has a very strong think tank, the ACRI, Australia-China Relations Institute, so you can follow that. The Economist always does articles on China, as does the FT that have a Chinese edition as well. So you're starting to find these little different influences that can help feed you with information and align with what you do. Another little trick when you're trying to source stuff that's relevant to your interest is to set up Google Alerts. So if you jump onto a web browser and type in google.com.au/alerts, this should be linked to your Google account. So if you're logged into Google, and this is basically a free news service. So what Google does is they scan a whole heap of content and they'll produce like an email based on that subject area. So let's, as a test, I want to do an alert on Korea. So I'll type in Korea and it'll come up with all of the news articles in the last week around Korea, sourced from lots of different places. Some are local, some are international. You know, there's some international. Dutch customs sees 90,000 bottles of vodka for heading to North Korea. Interesting. So if you set up these alerts and just go up and create alert, then automatically once a week it will send you a list of all of these news articles. And if it's an interest to you, then you can repost it on your LinkedIn profile, maybe with some comments or something. But it could be anything. It could be sports, science, any subject that you're interested in. Once you set up those Google Alerts, they'll come in automatically to your inbox. Another really good source of information, particularly from a business perspective, is Hefty Alerts. So same thing, you don't have to be a member of the Financial Times, but you can set up an FT alert feed. So same thing, so if you jump back onto the browser and you type in ft.com/register, you can set up your name and email address along with some interests down here. So you just go through that process. Which industry do you work in? What's your job responsibility? What's your position? And you can stay up to date, and you can choose how you want to receive those, whether you want them as an email or whether you want them by phone. But basically what you're doing is you're going through the first stage of their subscription process, but you can get all of the access to that content for free. So you don't necessarily have to go through the full completion to get access to those alerts. And then there's another service, there's probably quite a few of these, but this was just one that came up in conversation yesterday about figuring out what your digital persona is. So Digitizer, you can do a free trial with them, and you enter in your details and it'll give you some recommendations on how to optimize your social feeds. So not just LinkedIn, but also your Twitter and Facebook accounts as well. That's another service that you can look at. That's their URL there, digitizer.com. And I know people that have used that for optimizing their own presence. So we've built the profile, we've got the pictures, we've started to get an audience of people and companies to follow. So now we want to talk about content. And like I was saying, back to the analogy with that baby, you've got to feed it. You've got to keep giving it information. So when you start to think about writing content, set yourself some parameters. You know, do you write something from scratch, or if you've only got a little bit of time, maybe repost an article, like repost something that you've read that's interesting to you. If you're getting the Google alerts and you're getting the Hefty Alerts and you've got your feed working properly, there should be some relevant stuff coming up in your LinkedIn feed anyway. If you like it, or if you think it's really good, then repost it and just write a couple of sentences about it or what you're interested in about it, a couple of little highlights. And if you can repost that, that starts to build your credibility in that area and show that you're a specialist about that subject. There's lots of different types of content. Try to be true to just a few different things. Don't try and repost everything. Don't try and become the master of everything. Like, focus on what you're good at and focus on your interest area. And if you are going to repost someone else's article, like a newspaper article or somebody else's tweet, put a comment on it. Like, just add your voice to it about what you think about it, or try and contribute to that conversation. Couple of basic social media tips. When you do post, it's always good to have a video or a photo, because that helps grab people's attention in the feed. And there's some research that's come out from Facebook to show that videos have something like a 5 times higher engagement rate than normal just text content, because people see the motion and the video playing in the background. So if you're going to post stuff on LinkedIn, you can apply some of those practical little tips as well. Put a video on there if you have it. Make sure that you've got a picture that's engaging. That's going to help people pay attention to the articles. And where you can, and if there's other people involved, make sure you tag them. So, for example, when we post about stuff that's happening here, we'll tag at HairmarketHQ, and you can literally type the @ symbol HairmarketHQ and they'll come up in the list of the people you're looking for. And you can also use the hashtags as well. Like when you're going through posts, it'll put some suggested tags based on the content. So they've got an AI algorithm that works in the background to do that. And then lastly, it's just thinking about creating value. So whenever you're posting something or you're writing something, think about the audience and think about the value that they want to get out of that, because that's how you'll really build your credibility and build your profile. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the basics of getting your LinkedIn profile up and running. There's a couple of other little tips that you can do which are pretty easy. I'm not sure if you've done this already, but you can customize your URL. So that's the little address in the top of your home profile. So I'll show you just quickly how to do that. So let's just go to homepage, and then you go to me and go into settings and privacy. And you can edit your public profile. So this is how people will see you. That shows you all the information that's available on your page, and you can turn stuff on and off depending on how much you want to share. Like if you don't want to share your previous jobs, then you don't have to. You can turn that stuff off. But if you jump up to the top on the very right hand of the page, at the very end, you can personalize that to be your name. So if you haven't done this, it'll have like some crazy 10-digit number, but you just click on that and you can type your name in there, so it's easier for people to find it. That's really good for search engine optimization when people are searching through Google or a search engine looking for you. If they type in your name, LinkedIn always ranks in one of the top 5 searches. So it's an easy thing you can do to help your visibility.
So you just get rid of those numbers?
Yeah, you can, if you click on that little pen bit just there, you can type your name in there instead of the numbers. And then just save. So that's cool. Then another thing you can do is add like keywords and skills, so stuff that you're good at. And there's a couple of reasons for doing this. One of the reasons is because it helps people understand what you're standing for. So if you jump down to the very bottom of your profile page, it'll have like skills and endorsements, and you can add a new skill. So say you've just started making videos. Why don't we put that in? You could put videographer, you can type that in, or if you want to bin some of the other ones, you can literally delete them and then save. And when people log into LinkedIn, it'll remind other people to rate you on what you're good at. So over time, you don't really have control of this other than setting the skill of what you're good at, but people will start to rank what they think you're good at, and then they have to say how they think that, like either they worked with you or they worked for you or they were your boss, and they'll go through that rating process. But what that does is it starts to build some really key things. It's almost like an interactive CV. And then the next thing you can do, and this is going to take a little bit of time, but it's well worth doing, is seek endorsements or referrals. So again, if you go down to the next section where it says like recommendations, you can click on that and you can ask someone for a recommendation. So someone that you've worked with before, a colleague or maybe a boss, or somebody that you worked with on a key project. This is a really good way to start building like referrals, and they'll get a message which will say, I'll just go through an example. Let's try ask for a recommendation. So you can type in someone that you want to ask for a recommendation. You don't have to do this now, but you type in someone's name and then go through the process, and it'll send out like an automated template which you can fill in. And then they'll get that as an inbox message and ask to write you a referral. So a great way to get some recommendations. I usually find this is good when you've finished a big project or you're leaving jobs and you want to get a referral from someone. It becomes like an endorsement from that person. Cool. Any questions so far? You guys are okay? It's difficult when you're doing it on the fly because you can sort of go down the rabbit warren of stuff. The last area I wanted to touch on is around measurement, and this is how you can evaluate your profile. So the first one is really just the fame statistics. So up in the top, when you're on your profile, up in the top left-hand corner, there's a little box that'll have how many people have viewed your profile, how many articles you have saved, and views of your last post. So it's a good way to see how engaging or how people are engaging with you. You can go into, you can click on those links, each of those little numbers are hyperlinks, and it'll give you trends over time. So you can start to see whether it's increasing or declining. And again, because it's like that thing that you have to maintain, if you don't do it, it's going to drop off over time. But if you do continue a post and you keep sharing information and keep liking articles and things like that and reposting, you will see that trend up over time. You can also get some really cool analytics on articles that you publish. So it'll tell you who's read it, like what companies they come from, what their job titles are, which city they came from. So some really cool analytics that you'll start to get to understand your audience again. And then notifications are another good way to see how people are engaging with your content. You click on the little bell button up there, notifications. It'll tell you about who's been reading your stuff, what their engagement was, or if they commented or things like that. Google Trends is another cool way to check, like if there's stuff that you're talking about, or if it's a subject. You can jump into Google Trends and type in that subject. So I typed in personal branding, and you can see how that's flowing as an interest subject over time. So either by country or by specific keyword, and you can use that to try and pick up on some trends. So if it's something that's emerging, say it was around AI or it was around robotics or something, you could see how the conversation is growing over time. And then if you really feel inspired and you really want to use LinkedIn, you can go to a premium subscription, and then you get a whole nother suite of analytics and stuff off the top of that. So I've used LinkedIn Premium around times when I've changed jobs. So I found it quite good for getting feedback on my CV, and for jobs that I've applied for, then it gives you analytics like, oh, you're in the top 25% of applicants. Here's an alignment of your match with that company, and then you can see some more detailed information about the salary and stuff. So if you're in that period of changing jobs or looking at interviewing or things, you can take out a premium subscription for a short amount of time, and you'll find it quite beneficial. I think it's around $30 to $50 a month, depending on what level of membership you want. So that's kind of essentially it. This is not a set and forget kind of thing. It's something that you need to do over time. I'm happy to share some of this content with you guys and also with the Haymarket HQ community for people that are interested in building your profile. And if you want to contact me, my email is adam@asiaadvisory.co, and you can also use the QR code or some of the social media links at the bottom. But yeah, thank you very much.